actually much smarter than they used to give themselves credit for. So we do things like we learn to understand the functioning of our instruments. We learn, for example, the characteristics of the mind, how the mind can really work against us almost all of the time, but how we can easily learn to turn the mind towards us. Our mind is sort of like a wonderful child with great, great talents and abilities, whom we've never owned, and so it thinks it's an orphan, and it's running around trying to find connection and trying to get our attention, and it does all kinds of bad things in order to get our attention if we don't pay attention, you know. And we can learn our mind actually loves to be connected with us, and loves to be really a source of great creativity and great information and a lot of good things. It really wants to, you know, participate in our life very connectedly. And our feelings, and our intuition, they're wonderful instruments. And if we were to just pay attention to them and learn to trust them, they would give us powerful certainty of knowledge. Yeah? So we learn to cultivate those relationships by understanding these instruments and then actually exercising them in ways that they become empowered. Just like, you know, some of you mentioned when you started doing yoga here, and most people by yoga mean the physical postures and movements, that's a form of exercising your physiological as well as your neurological and other systems in a way that if you don't do it anymore, you find there's something missing, there's something amiss for you. There's a feeling of lack, a feeling of, I'm just not right, you know. Well, it's the same thing for your other instruments, for your mind, your feelings, emotions, your senses, even your intellect and intuition. They're tremendously powerful instruments that allow us to experience the power of being on every level that being, because everything that is being, right? That being expresses itself on every level, from the grossest, which is the material realm, to the subtlest, to beyond the intellect and intuition, the essential realm, or what you call the spiritual realm. To us, it's not spiritual like up there. It's spiritual, it's like, that's the foundation, the fundamental of us, the essence of us. So we're here to, this is all possible. And what most people come to a conclusion here is, why didn't I do this a long time ago? Why didn't I start out with that as a child? You know? Because what we're talking about here is inherent to all of us. Everyone yearns for that as long as they don't have it. The experience of the true being that you are, in an empowered, harmonious, fundamental, and all-inclusive way. Because it imbues, it empowers and illuminates every aspect of your life once you are living true to who you really are. So our practices that we go through are ways of training our instruments, mind, feelings, emotions, that we also call the faculties, training them to live true to what we want and true to what we know to be true. And remember how I earlier said that there's a certain state where you know that what you know is so. It's not wishful thinking or theorizing or repetition of others' misconceptions, but where you know that state where you're fully conscious, fully aware, with every facet of you in clarity and free of distortion and distraction, we cultivate that state at will. And that state is called meditation. Now, it's rare to be alive in our society nowadays without having heard that term tossed around, meditation. People in the Western culture becoming very interested in meditation, and yet very, very few people know what meditation really is. I spent a couple of years on a lecture circuit throughout the university system of the United States and parts of Canada and so on, and Europe. And this was years ago when I introduced the concepts of meditation and talked about what profound changes our students make in their lives with meditation. And people would come to me and say, well, I've been meditating an hour or 2 hours every day for 15 years, and I don't get anywhere close to what you say your students do within some months. And I'd say, well, okay, tell me, what do you do to get yourself to the state of meditation? Because just wishing for it hasn't worked so far, has it? What do you do? Well, I don't know. I just try to make my mind quiet. That's it? Well, no wonder you have such difficulty. What we have here is a profoundly detailed but very simple, systematic approach that we go through every time, step by step, by which meditation is brought about rather predictably if you do it sincerely and not just go through the motions. See? And the results are very, very, they're not guesswork. They profoundly affect your life, your relationships, your profession, your job. Your time just by yourself. It's deeply affected. It's picked up. It's empowered. It's illuminated, and becomes vital and clear and strong. What we're talking about here is not for everybody. There are people who just don't want to take responsibility for themselves. So this approach does not work for them, or they will not work this approach. Okay. This is not for people who are attached to suffering. Do you know that there are people attached to suffering? You know many of them. Quite a few of the people that you know are attached to suffering. And you can tell. You can see it in conversations. Let's say on a day where you're feeling well and you want to speak about positive, they turn everything into something negative, right? Yeah. You know a lot of people like that. There are people who live a life of repetition of the mistakes by which they hurt themselves. And even though you've tried to help them and shown them ways by which they could eliminate that suffering, they refuse. They insist on their right to curtail their freedom. Yeah. So, what we're doing is only for those people who have come far enough in life to be in touch with some regard for themselves, some respect, some love for themselves, that they're willing to give themselves the attention and the goodwill to free themselves purposefully and meaningfully, free themselves from the self-limiting patterns of behavior that most of us have grown up with, and most of us are still attached to. Does it make sense to you? Yeah. So meditation is just one of the things we do, is because through that we establish a state that becomes the foundation of balance and clarity and peacefulness and tranquility and deep satisfaction that allows our mind and feelings and emotions and intellect and intuition and even senses to be free, to be in a cooperative, unified relationship with ourselves. And one of you said, you're looking for that union. And that union, everybody looks for, whether they know it or not. Whether they live against it or not, ultimately and fundamentally, everybody is looking for that union where everything within them is unified, and that is unified with everything that is. That is the ultimate union that we all, that we're of. And so for us to be true to ourselves, we have to experience and live in that union. Some of you looked for a union when you got married, right? Marriage is a very common state in humanity, looking for union with another. But that's just an example of union that we look for on a much larger scale as well. It's a microcosm. So, enough talking. I don't know what I'm talking about. Would you like me to give you a little example of what it would be like to even approach meditation? So if you'd like to, I will give you a series of suggestions. And just free yourself from the concept, oh, I don't know how to do that or not. Every one of those suggestions that I give you, you can implement at the moment I give it to you. So it's an active engagement, okay? Now, I'll only give you positive suggestions, so you don't have to worry about it. But so to the degree that you sincerely focus and stay with it and implement the suggestions, and I'll give you enough to keep you entertained. To that degree, can you give yourself a beautiful, deeply fulfilling or empowering experience, even if you've never done it before. Okay? Do you want to stand up for a moment and just stretch out and breathe deeply? Yes? My answer to the question, who